Esteemed colleagues, we are continuing our series of press briefings, and now we have a press briefing of the Pershogo Grudnya initiative group, which have prepared an appeal to the international leaders to review its policy concerning the Russian-Ukrainian conflict and the President Putin's political regime, stating that this is Putin's policy, which intensifies the armed conflict. And we will speak to Mr. Yevgen Sverstyuk, Ukrainian writer and philosopher, with Mr. Myroslav Popovych, Ukrainian philosopher, professor, academician of the National Academy of Sciences, Mr. Vyacheslav Bryukhovetsky, honorary president of the National University Kyiv-Mohyla Academy, and Mr. Vadim Skurativsky, Ukrainian public figure and writer. Good afternoon, esteemed colleagues and journalists. I am authorized to read the statement of the Pershogo Grudnya initiative group to the international leaders and the public. The Russia has launched the war against Ukraine. This aggression is a large-scale and of long-term character. The Kremlin attacked all the international principles of international relations and legal rules. There's a breach of the international system could put under question the human civilization. Actually, this aggression has started long ago, but none of us was able to recognize it. Russia is unable to realize the independence of any neighboring country. The information war against Ukraine has gained unprecedented scales and turned into the industry of lie in the entire world. And its propaganda, the ruling regime in Russia positions Russia as a victim of the international collateral headed by the USA. The mass propaganda follows chauvinism, xenophobia, and fear against the external world. And step by step, they are repeating the story of the Third Reich. We should stop this aggressor, and this is not local war. The key to the security of any European country is not the policy of not noticing the threat and separate agreements with the aggressor, but the solidarity in opposing this policy and stating and strengthening the principles and values. There is no stable security on the account of sacrificed values. And Putin's regime forces the entire world to sacrifice something. And actually, what we have now on stake is the fundamentals of European culture, and it is better to pay lesser today than to pay more tomorrow. The main driving force for Putin to continue aggression are not mythic crimes of Ukrainian power, but the permanent retreat of the West in its value. The aggressor should understand that it has crossed crossed the border of patience, and that the world won't allow this force to be demonstrated. We are very grateful to the entire world for solidarity. Because if Ukraine is ruined, the entire world culture will suffer. We cannot determine how Ukraine should be assisted today. This should be decided by the government. But each new peaceful dialogue with aggressor will turn with new tragedies for Ukraine in the war fields. The war could be called hybrid, but the human death could not be called hybrid, and we appeal to all the international leaders and public to review its previous support of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict and understand that the major source of threat is Putin's regime. Putin has ruined the soul of his country. He has turned his people in the fear of the whole world, and he has started the death attack at all of us. He has distorted the entire second dozen years of the 21st century, and the parameters of the future could not be changed by him. And we strongly believe that the consolidated Euro-Atlantic community can do much in terms of protection and resurrection of the fundamental values of our cultures. We would like to remind that our initiative group, the 1st of December, was created by Vyacheslav Bryukhovetsky, Bogdan Gavrilishin, Horbulin, Cardinal Lubomiruza, and some other Ukrainian public figures. Now, questions. I am not sure whether this is a question to you or to your colleagues. How do you think why there is a rift between the European partners and what is the underlying reason for this disintegrity between them, whether these are money or these ideals or whatever? I believe that there is an existence of huge pro-Russian lobby in Russia, and the main underlying reason is money. And probably there are ideological partners, but I'm not quite sure they really exist. I believe that one of the most influential part of Western society, which is following the opportunistic policy towards Russia. Those politicians are not numerous, but actually the majority of Western European politicum, they continue to support Russia because they try to do what their voters want to see, and for the majority of Western people, it is not easy to understand and to recognize such huge detrimental figures as Stalin, as Hitler, and as Putin as well. And actually, when such figures appear, people cannot believe that. They believe that that's unbelievable. And what we witness today actually is a demonstration of this inability of people to believe to what they witness with their own eyes. Actually, what we see today, that the Russian president applies a huge lie and deceives the entire world. And this is the moment when our Western colleagues have faced the huge challenge. Usually, the process is as follows. Putin makes a sharp step, then the Western Europe steers up, somehow responds to it, but not sufficiently, and gradually everybody got accustomed to the new situation, just like as it happened with Crimea. And nevertheless, in this situation, we want to cry out and to make people hear us. We are not a political party. We are not following our personal interests. We do not want to become members of parliament or to get some political influence. But our objective with this statement is to draw attention to what's going on and to allow people to participate in our movement to make the governments hear them. Among other things, when we speak like this, we want to draw attention to the fact that there is a huge sentiment in the West about the great Russian culture. Russian culture is really great, but this existing sentiments now has gained rather the shape of a paradox. One of the very famous Swiss public writers has mentioned that Crimea is Russian territory because it was Leo Tolstoy who wrote the Sevastopol stories. One of the most popular novels in the United States is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy, and Chekhov's plays are very popular on Broadway, and the world people, intellectuals, they believe that this is a really great culture, and people in the West cannot believe that this really great culture could be backed with such aggressive political. Actually, this is what really happening. On the one hand, we have great Russian culture, but on the other hand, we have very aggressive Russian politics. And Western people have to understand and to recognize that we found ourselves in an extremely threatening world. Can I ask a question?
I just wanted to mention that the question was not exactly correct, and there's no truth in it. Now we need to soberly look at the reaction of the world, at the events taking place, and we can ask even more naive question, why the whole world did not stand up against the total lies and aggression. You understand that the whole world will not do that, as well as our citizens, but I am surprised that the world has united now more than in previous times that I remember. Europe has united around its principles and is ready to defend them. But not all the Europe, but one is bored, another one is crazy. Another one is does not understand what's happening. But never ever Ukraine had such a big global support that it has now. And it has never been so that Russia would not be respected by the whole world, not just one person, but Russia is disrespected, the whole country. And I would like to tell one thing to journalists, maybe not just ours, but all the journalists. Russia had the most powerful weapon, propaganda, I mean. With the assistance of these weapons, they were able to hide even this awful fact of the starvation of 1933. The propaganda has hid that. And now we have to understand that these huge money which were spent for propaganda starting from the times before Lenin by Bolsheviks, huge amounts of money. These were used for certain purposes, and we shouldn't forget that. That's all being done right in front of our eyes. But there's propaganda for soldiers. There's propaganda for school children. There's propaganda for sheep. And it's acting. There's propaganda for professional intelligence officers who work in the West. There's propaganda. There are newspapers, magazines in the West, and they also act. It's awful. The propaganda is huge. And when I look through some old magazines, the plague, which in the 13th century was considered to be the end of the world, and people seriously believed that would be the end of the world. There was a big threat, and there is still a big threat from radiation. Semi-crazy and tsars are also threatening this weapon. But there is big and most poisonous, most lasting thing, that is lies. It is impossible to treat from that within one generation. You cannot have your own people recover from lies, and you are the knights who are fighting with lies and against lies. Thank you for your position. The practical question: what will be the ways of disseminating your statement? How are you planning to disseminate it? Do you have any contacts with international organizations who support Ukraine? Dissemination today is more or less known way. We have internet. We can immediately transfer information. As to our contacts with foreign activists, foreign organizations, yes, we do have such contacts, but they are more not at the institutional level. We do not be seen as some united party, even inside. Sometimes we have different views, and we don't have some single position on certain issues. So this will go be disseminated very quickly, and all with who we cooperate will get it. No more questions. I would like to thank the participants of the initiative group 1st of December. We hope that your statement will help the world to hear and that the war in Ukraine is provoked by the aggression of Putin regime. Thank you. Our next press briefing will be held in a few minutes.